Greetings and welcome. This is the ThaBadbrey Herbal SSR of ThaBadbrey Herbal.co.uk, and today I am the ThaBadbrey Astrologer. And this video is to my fellow students of ancient astrology. Yeah. So to those of you who are students, such as myself, because I'm also a student of this beautiful, magnificent art form, I'm going to explain my approach to ancient astrology and the several branches that I split ancient astrology into, all right? How I approach ancient astrology. I split into 6 branches, 6 main branches. Now, I'm going to go through them. I'm going to go through from the primary branch all the way up to the most advanced branch of ancient astrology. All right. Now, these branches, there's 6 of them. All right. As far as I'm concerned, in terms of how I approach it from my perspective. All right. However, each of these branches can be further branched out and further split. All right. And in essence, there's actually no limitation to how many branches actually exist in ancient astrology. And I feel within myself, based upon my own spiritual awareness and understanding, that there's actually an infinite amount of branches of ancient astrology, and it never stops, it never ends. But whilst I'm on this, in this physical plane, yeah, on this planet Terra, that you call, most people call, planet Earth. So whilst I'm here on Terra, yeah, in the physical plane, I will be expounding upon the 6 main branches of ancient astrology in the way I approach them. Okay, so let me get to the point. Right, they are as follows. So the first branch of ancient astrology, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, the entry point, the lowest echelon of ancient astrology is horary astrology. All right. Now, I covered this in a previous video, but I'm going to cover it again. All right. So horary astrology is the lowest branch of ancient astrology, and as far as I'm concerned, it is the entry point. And if you are learning ancient astrology, then it is most advisable for you to actually learn a horary astrology and become reasonably adept at horary astrology before moving on to the other higher, more advanced branches. All right. Horary astrology is based upon someone asking you a question, okay? So instead of obtaining the birth, time, and place of the client, you get the birth, time, and place of the time that they asked the question. So somebody asked me a question at 6:30 p.m. Then I generate a natal chart for the question itself at 6:30 p.m. for the location that I am standing in, or the location that they're standing in, depending upon your school of thought. I usually use the location I'm standing in. And then after generating that chart, the chart will actually show symbolically what the answer to the question actually is. And the astrologer interprets the symbolism that is prevalent within the chart. There's various questions that can be asked by a client who is looking for a horary astrological reading. You can ask questions such as, is she pregnant? Or am I pregnant? Or am I going to receive my package tomorrow? Or is he cheating on me? Or is she cheating on me? Or you can even ask, is this particular item in stock? Would it be in stock tomorrow? All right. You can even ask, is it going to rain tomorrow? All right. That's horary astrology. That's the first branch of ancient astrology. And you can even use it to find lost objects, like I explained before, which is what I've had very great success doing in the past, is finding lost objects using horary astrology. Somebody will say to me, I have lost my book. Can you give me an idea as to where the book actually is? And then I generate a chart from the time I understand the question and the location I'm standing in, and then I generate a horary astrological chart based upon the question itself, and I'm able to, the astrologer should be able to narrow down and give a very good indication as to where the lost object actually is. In this case, the lost book. All right. So, yeah. Then you got different signs will represent different directions, different areas of the house, whether it's and if it's outside, whether it's in a building, whether it's in the forest, whether it's on the ground level. Yeah. Then you look at what the moon was last separating from. That will tell you exactly what the person was thinking or how the object was actually lost. And what the moon is moving towards will tell you whether or not they're going to get the object back or not. If you see any planet separating from the Lord of the house of the moon, that means it has been stolen. And especially if it's the 8th house that's separating from the Lord of the house of the moon, or shall I say the moon separating from the Lord of the 8th house would mean it's been stolen. But anyway, I'm digressing. That's Horary astrology, yeah? And once you get reasonably adept at Horary astrology, then you can move up to the next level of ancient astrology, all right? And in ancient times, you needed to be reasonably adept at Horary before you can move on, because straight away, if someone says to you, for example, they could say to you, is she pregnant? And you say, yes, she's pregnant. And then she goes for a pregnancy test and she's not pregnant, then you know that you read the chart incorrect. So you go back to the chart and then you look at it and you analyze it and you slowly hone your skills until you become reasonably adept at Horary astrology, and then you can move on to the next level. The next level, the next branch up from that is the first branch, Horary astrology. The second branch up from Horary astrology is electional astrology. Now, electional astrology, I have covered this in a previous video, so I'll go over it briefly here. Electional astrology is based upon, rather than being like Horary astrology, where someone asks you a question at the time and then you generate a Horary chart for the time the question is asked as well as the location you're standing in. This time, somebody will come to you and say, what is the best moment for me? What is the most auspicious moment for me to initiate a certain activity? For example, someone could say to you, I want to launch a business between now and next month. What is the best time and date for me to actually do that? Yeah. What you would do is you get ephemeris, which is planetary tables, and you look at the dates between now and next month, and you look at the best, most auspicious moment for the time, well, the most auspicious time to actually initiate the launching of the business itself. And that would be when certain planets are in certain positions in the sky, and the position of the houses, which is the 12 divisions that the sky is divided up into, when the positions of the houses correspond with the most essential planets that would be needed in order to launch a business. And the planets and houses that you would want to strengthen, i.e., like planets that you would want to put into exaltation or in rulership, or even planets you want to weaken by putting them into detriment, or putting them into the sign of their fall. How you actually place these planets and how you strengthen or weaken them depends upon the nature of the business itself. So for example, if somebody said that they want to launch their own bank, basically, you would most definitely want to strengthen the planet Jupiter and the planet Venus as well. And you would want to put Jupiter into his exaltation. So you would want to put Jupiter into Cancer, or you would want to put Jupiter into his rulership, like Sagittarius or Pisces. You do not want to put Jupiter into the sign of his fall. You do not want to put Jupiter into Capricorn. You do not want to put Jupiter in the sign of his detriment, okay? You do not want to put him into Virgo if you want to launch a bank. However, if you wanted to dissolve a bank, or if you had a bank and you wanted to close up shop, yeah, you could put Jupiter into the sign of his fall, all right? So that you are actually closing the bank down and the money is actually dwindling and you're distributing it probably to shareholders or wherever you're going to distribute it. But that just depends. So the nature of the business itself will determine which planets you want to strengthen within the electional chart, as well as the position of the houses. Now, the position of the houses will actually... the position of the houses will change in terms of their proportion depending upon which house system you're actually using, but the position of the planets will change, i.e. which house they're actually posited in will change according according to the time of day, all right? And sometimes it's not always appropriate. The time of day is not always appropriate. The most auspicious time of day is not always appropriate for the business itself. For example, somebody might say, I would like to launch a business, preferably midday between now and next month. What's the most auspicious moment for me to do it? And I could go through the ephemeris and narrow it down to like 3 days within that time period. And out of all of those 3 days, all of them say, or should I say indicate, that the best time to launch the business would be at 3 o'clock in the morning, which is completely going against the wishes of the client because they would want to launch it at midday. Therefore, they would have to pick another day or another time period in which to choose to elect to launch their business, and then come back to the astrologer and ask the astrologer to work out or delineate the most auspicious moment to launch the business itself, all right? Now, that's electional astrology. There's lots of complex rules governing electional astrology, and it keeps going, and some astrologers only specialize in electional astrology, and electional astrology usually takes a very, very long time for the astrologer to slowly plow through all of the possible auspicious moments or auspicious days within a time period in which it will be astrologically best to launch a specific activity. All right. Now, yeah, that's the second branch of ancient astrology. The next branch up from ancient astrology, yeah, is mundane. Mundane astrology. Now, mundane astrology is astrology as it pertains to the socio-economic climate of the country, yeah, or a specific country or a specific country in a specific location in the world, all right? And what's usually done in mundane astrology is there would be, what's usually used traditionally is an ingress chart. You wait until the sun has ingressed into a new sign. And when he has ingressed, the sun, Sol, the heavenly father, has ingressed into a new sign, then an astrological chart is drawn up at the moment that it has entered that new sign. And depending upon the nature of the sign on the ascendant within that chart that's delineated, or should I say generated, as a result of the sun ingressing into the new sign, that ascendant will determine how many months that the chart is actually valid. All right. If it's a cardinal sign, then the chart is valid for 3 months. If it is a fixed sign, the chart is valid for the whole year. If it is a mutable sign, the chart is valid for 6 months. All right. And the different houses, astrological houses within this mundane chart, would symbolically correspond to and or represent different areas of the country. The first house would be the people, the health of the people, how the people are feeling. Yeah. The second house, yeah, would be the economic system, or should I say the wealth of the country. How much money is at the country's disposal? Yeah. Inflation rates. All right. The third house will represent transportation, buses, trains, public transport. All right. The fourth house will represent house prices, property prices. The fifth house will represent the birth rate, and so on and so forth, going through all of those houses. All right. Then you have different planets within the mundane charts would represent different facets of the country in which the mundane chart is generated for. All right. You can have the moon. The moon will represent the emotional wants and needs of the people, what the people are thinking on an emotional level. Mercury will represent how people will be communicating with each other. Where Mercury is positive, will indicate what will be in the media in terms of the news that will be being reported during that period, all right? And you can use mundane charts, Ingress charts, to delineate who is likely to become elected in a presidency, who is likely to be impeached, which prime minister is going to be in power. You can even use it to delineate floods, the weather, and the effect that the weather will have on people. But that's going into astrometeorology, which is the next branch up. So in mundane astrology, basically you're looking at the socio-economic climate of a country in a specific part of the world, and you use the Ingress chart to delineate what will actually likely take place in that area of the world. All right. You can also use the natal chart of a particular country or city. So if a country or city was founded on a certain date, you can use the birth chart of the country itself, and you can superimpose that upon the mundane chart and you can delineate that way. All right. And some astrologers only specialize in mundane astrology. All right. Next branch up, yeah, because that was the third branch. The fourth branch up is, the fourth branch up in ancient astrology is astrometeorology. Now, astrometeorology is based upon astrology as it pertains to weather prediction, weather analysis, and weather delineation. Now, astrometeorology is highly intertwined and interlinked intrinsically with mundane astrology, because the state, or shall I say, the manifestation of the weather plays a part in terms of how the mood, the general consensual mood of the people is manifested, all right? For example, today, it is raining in London, UK, 51 north latitude. It is raining and it is windy, all right? And that is due to the fact that Mercury, yeah, is conjunct Mars. Yeah, Mercury represents the wind, Mars represents hot air, and Mercury is conjunct Mars in the tropical sign of Virgo, all right? Now, Mercury is in his exaltation and his rulership, so he's blowing wind. Virgo is a cold and dry sign, all right? And then, on top of that, they're corporally joined to the sun, who is also in Virgo, all right? And what you get is the sun is opposing Neptune in Pisces. Pisces is a cold and moist sign, and Neptune is known for being wet and moist and causing rain. Therefore, the wind is blowing immensely. There's hot air and cold air combining, because hot-headed Mars is corporally joined to the sun, and the sun is opposing wet Neptune, the watery deity, and causing rain. Then the ruler of Pisces, which is Jupiter, is currently in Libra. Jupiter in Libra causes white clouds to form. And because Jupiter rules Pisces and Neptune is in Pisces, then the clouds are coming in from the west, because Libra rules the direction of west, and they are filling with water as a result of Jupiter having control over Neptune, which is in his sign, i.e. Pisces, and Neptune opposing the sun, and the sun being dry, temporarily dry, and being in Virgo, which is cold and dry. The coldness mixes with the moistness of Neptune and the cold moistness of Pisces and fills the clouds, and then Mercury blows, and all of that cold air combines with the hot air generated by Mars and causes the wind to blow and the rain to fall from the sky, precipitation. All right? But anyway, I'm slightly digressing. Astrometeorology, yeah? Now, with astrometeorology, what you can do is actually analyze, delineate, and or predict the weather. And there are I think there's 3 ways of doing it. One way is what I used to do, is a sunrise chart. Wake up in the morning, and as soon as, at sunrise, generate a horary chart for astrometeorological horary chart, if there's such an expression. Well, I've created it just now. Astrometeorological horary chart for sunrise in the location you're in, and based upon the signs that are on the angles, the angles being 1, 4, 7, 10, houses 1, house 1, house 4, house 7, and house 10. You look at the signs on those angles. You look at what is the most dominant temperament out of all of those signs on those angles, and then you look at where the rulers of those angles are, i.e. which planets rule the signs which are on the angles, and you look at what aspects they're casting to each other. And the most important thing to look at is the moon, as she doth move swiftly within the heavens, and look at what planet she is separating from and what she's moving towards, and that will give you an idea of how the weather will actually manifest for the whole of that particular day as well as throughout the night. All right. Another way of doing it is actually using a lunation chart, which is what I do regularly right now. Yeah. A lunation chart is you look at when the moon actually changes phase. And when I say change phase, I mean the 4 main phases of the moon. Yeah. I.e. the new moon, first quarter, full moon, last quarter, and back to the new moon. Yeah. So each time the moon goes into a new phase, you generate a lunation chart at the moment that she goes into that new phase. And after you've done that, you generate the chart and you analyze it, and that will give you a breakdown of how the weather will manifest for the next 7 days or so. Usually the moon changes phase every 7 days, all right? And it is the same technique you would actually use in astrometeorology. You use the location that you're actually in, or shall I say the location that you would like to predict, analyze, or delineate the weather for. And you look at the planets, or shall I say, the signs on the angles. The signs that are on houses 1, 4, 7, and 10. And you look at where their rulers are. You look at where the path of fortune is, and you look at the movement of the moon and the planets that she's separating from what she's moving towards, and you look at where she would be over the course of the next 7 days, and you delineate what the weather is likely to do. All right. Usually when the moon is conjunct Neptune, it causes rain. When she's actually making a trine to Neptune, that usually causes rain. All right. If she's opposing him, sometimes causes rain. It depends upon what other planets are actually there. Yeah. And all the other planets play their part as well. But because the moon controls the weather and she pulls all the air with her, wherever she is in the heavens, she has the greatest effect upon the weather itself. All right. Another way of delineating astrometeorological weather predictions is by creating it's like a solar. You can use a solar chart. All right. You can look at when the sun actually ingresses into a new seasonal quarter. All right. So we know that Aries, Taurus, and Gemini corresponds with spring. So as soon as the sun ingresses into Aries, you can look at where he would be throughout each day as he traverses each of those 3 signs in the spring. All right. And you can get a good idea as to what the weather will manifest like. You still pay special attention to the moon, but in this case, you are delineating for what? 3 astrological months. Is it 3 astrological months? Yeah, 3 astrological months. Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. Now, for astrologers that specialize in astrometeorology, usually they use sunrise charts. In my experience, sunrise charts, lunation charts, as well as the solar charts as well. All right. And they superimpose all of it together and come up with a prediction for the whole year, sometimes 5-10 years in advance. Yeah. Some astrologers can do that. Yeah. Now, that's astrometeorology. Yeah. And that is like what? That's like the 4th branch. That's the 4th branch up in ancient astrology. The next branch up, which is the 5th branch of ancient astrology, is before I go to the fifth branch, let's go back to mundane astrology. Another part of mundane astrology is actually, it's like a sub branch of mundane astrology, and it mixes mundane astrology with astrometeorology, and this is known as financial astrology. All right, financial astrology looks at the cycles of, like, the outer planetary cycles, how they pertain to the socio-economic climate of the country, as well as how they have an effect upon different stocks, all right, and the value of different products, or should I say different stocks on the stock market, all right. And that is also intertwined with astrometeorology, because with astrometeorology, if you're serious about astrometeorology, you would not only take into consideration the outer planetary cycles, as well as where the moon is and where she's moving towards, what she's separating from, and the phases of the moon. You would also take into consideration the sunspot cycle. The sunspot cycle is very, very, very important. Yeah, you have solar maximums and you have solar minimums. Right now we're in sun cycle 24. We're coming to the end of it, and we are heading into a solar minimum. All right. And when there's a solar minimum, usually what happens is the magnetosphere of the planet is compromised, and as a result of it, we're bombarded by cosmic rays. And when these cosmic rays bombard us, what happens is it affects crops and it affects the weather. This is why the weather is so mad all over the world, and could create hurricanes, tornadoes, flooding. As a result, crops suffer and food prices go up. All right. So financial astrology incorporates astrometeorology with mundane astrology. All right. And all of that combined together tells you the financial state of the stock market, as well as the state, socio-economic state of different places in the world, based upon the crop yield that will result as a result of the outer planetary cycles in conjunction with the solar cycles. All right. Now, I will do probably a separate video on astrometeorology and the solar sunspot cycle, because it's very important, especially at this time. All right. Now, back to financial astrology. There was a man by the name of W.D. Gann who spent 9 years in the library studying the planetary cycles. And after he did that, he started applying his astrological knowledge to the stock market, and he was able to trade, I think it was with an accuracy of, or shall I say, a success rate of like 98% or something like that. And when people asked him, how do you trade at such a high success rate? He would always give them a cryptic answer that was symbolically linked to astrology. All right. And he wrote a book called The Tunnel Through the Air, which actually explained his methods, but in a very cryptic astrological manner. All right. And there are like separate schools. There's financial schools, people who trade on the stock market who only specialize in financial astrology and the methods of W.D. Gann. But that is financial astrology, yeah? And that's like a sub branch of mundane astrology mixed in with astrometeorology, all right? Now, going back up, yeah? So, where were we? We were on the fourth branch of astrology, which was astrometeorology. The fifth branch up from astrometeorology is medical astrology, all right? Now, medical astrology is astrology as it pertains to the physiological makeup, or should I say the physical health condition of the human body, all right? Now, in medical astrology, rather than creating a birth chart to analyze somebody on a psychological level in isolation, you would create a birth chart or a natal chart or a nativity or a radix, as it's traditionally referred to. You would generate that in order to find out what ailment is ailing them. Okay? In medieval times, sometimes a horary chart will be generated to actually find out what disease is affecting them, all right? There was something called, well, by today's standards, we'll call it a urine test. In the medieval times, it was called piss prophecy. The prophecy of piss. and the person would piss in a container, and they'll bring the piss to the astrologer, and the astrologer will hold his nose. I'm joking. The astrologer will look at the piss and then look at his watch. The astrologer will look at the piss, then look at their watch, and then create a horary chart for the time that they received the piss from the sick client, all right? Or from the person who brought the piss from the sick client to the astrologer to prophesize the piss. So, yeah, and a horary chart will be generated, and from the horary chart you can actually look and see what type of ailment may be ailing the person who's been asked about, all right? So, you would have different houses which would represent, well, different signs will represent different parts of the body, and depending upon where the planets are posited and whether they are in a well-placed position or badly placed position, i.e. if they're in their rulership or exaltation, or if they're in their detriment or in their fall, that will indicate as to what part of the body is being ailed. And based upon the temperament of the planets and the temperament of the signs themselves, as well as how the houses are lined up corresponding to those signs and planets, that will tell you what type of malady they are being affected by. And that will be done in the horary chart via the piss prophecy that I just explained. Or you take the actual birth time and place of the diseased person, and you generate a natal chart, and then you'll find out exactly what it is that may be ailing them, all right? You can use transits, or you can actually use the actual natal positions of the planets themselves within their chart, all right? Depending, all right? Now, you would have different signs representing different parts of the body. For example, Aries, like most astrologers know, in medical astrology, Aries will symbolize the head, Taurus will be the neck. In ancient tropical astrology, Aries will be the head, Taurus will be the neck, and then you'll have like Gemini will be the arms, maybe this top part, collarbone, and then you have Cancer, which will be the breast. Then you have Leo, which will be the heart and the back, and it keeps going downwards, yeah, all the way down to the feet, Pisces, yeah. Now, where the planets are placed in the chart will tell you what type of ailment they have. For example, if you have Saturn in Aries, or shall I say, yeah, actually, if you have Saturn in Aries and the person was sick, yeah, and you had Saturn in Aries, Saturn is in his fall, not in his fall. Yeah, Saturn will be in his fall in Aries, basically. So therefore, the person may have a problem with their head, and they may have fallen and hurt their head as a result of Saturn being in fall in Aries. But also, because Saturn is in Aries, and you have, if Saturn was in Aquarius, that could also symbolize the face, and it could also symbolize the shins. And the reason why it will symbolize the face or the head is because Saturn rules Aquarius, and Aquarius, as far as Saturn is concerned, is his house. So therefore, it will represent the first house of Saturn. So if you count backwards and you say, well, count forwards, should I say, then you know that Aries is what? 3 signs away. Well, 2 signs away actually. It's 2 signs away from Aquarius. So if you have Saturn in Aries and you have Aquarius, which will be the first house of Saturn, then you count 1, 2, 3. Aquarius, Pisces, Aries. So Aquarius will be 1. Pisces will be house number 2. Yeah, and then Aries will be house number 3 according to Saturn. So if you have Saturn in Aries, the person may have a problem with their head, yeah, and may have fallen because Saturn will be in fall in Aries, but also they may have a problem with their arms. Why? Because the third sign in the zodiac is Gemini, which corresponds to the arms. And because, as you can see, I explained, Aries is the third sign away from Aquarius. When Saturn's in Aries, it symbolizes the arms, all right? Now, that's ancient astrology. Now, with that aside, also, you have different planets which represent different minerals, all right? You can have Mars, who represent selenium, represent sodium, yeah? Represent B12, represent cobalt, yeah? Represents B9, folic acid. You can also have, for example, Venus, represents the mineral copper, also represents the skin, and you can also go to the moon. The moon will represent potassium, all right, and also represent vitamin B2, all right. And all of the different planets represent different minerals, different parts of the body, different vitamins, all right? Now, that's medical astrology. And it has survived all the way from like the ancient world all the way up into the present day. That is the fifth branch of ancient astrology. The sixth branch of ancient astrology, which is the highest and most advanced branch of ancient astrology, is natal astrology. Now, it seems that today, as a result of what took place in the past concerning an astrologer by the name of Alan Leo, it seems like all of the other branches of astrology have kind of been forgotten by today's standards in the modern world, and most people just jump onto natal astrology and seem to have no knowledge of the other 5 branches, all right? Natal astrology, yes, is the highest echelon of ancient astrology. And once you have become reasonably adept in 1 or 2 or even 3 or more of those lower branches, then you can jump into natal astrology. So if you're reasonably adept at horoastrology and astrometeorology, or horoastrology and electional astrology, as far as I'm concerned, horoastrology is essential, all right? And it's the most basic branch. Then you can move up all the way through all of the branches of astrology up to the 6th branch, which is natal astrology, which is dealing with, as most people are already familiar, where the planets were at the time of birth according to the latitude and the place that the person, or should I say the client, or should I say the native, was at the time that they exited the vagina, okay? And then from there you can dive in, you can look at the diseases or ailments they may be afflicted with throughout the course of their life. You can look at who they may marry or may not marry, how many children they may have or may not have, brothers and sisters. You can look at their job, you can look at their spiritual outlook, their growth. You can look at the different planetary periods and what periods they'll be going through at certain ages, use the prophetic cycle. But that's natal astrology, yeah, which is the highest branch of it. You can use their transits, predictive astrology, progressions, secondary progressions, tertiary progressions. There's so much of it in terms of natal astrology, and it's very complex. And it is more complex than the other branches. Okay, and as far as I'm concerned, I did not feel comfortable practicing natal astrology until I was reasonably adept at horoastrology and at least one other branch of ancient astrology. Because you can hone your skills, you can use astrometeorology, and you can say to yourself, I'm looking at this chart and I predict it's going to rain tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And then tomorrow it's blazing hot, blazing sun, and there's no rain. Then you know that you flopped. You read the chart incorrect. So you go back to the chart and you analyze it and you keep on honing your skills. With horoastrology, you can continually ask somebody to hide a lost object, or should I say hide the object so it becomes lost, and then generate a horo chart and try to locate where the lost object is. And when you become reasonably adept at doing it and being able to locate the lost object with like about 76% accuracy, then you can move on to other branches because you're reasonably adept at it, yeah? Rather than just jumping onto natal astrology without having a grasp of the lower branches, all right? And that is how I break up that's how I approach, that's how I approach ancient astrology. I break it down into 6 main branches. All right. This is the ThaBadbrey Herbal SSR of the ThaBadbrey Herbal.co.uk. The ThaBadbrey Ancient Astrologer. I will be back. So stay tuned. Dendera.